Hello everybody and welcome back to SkySaga Alpha 9. We are over here on my home island, and today we're going to be talking about the fact that Alpha 9 is not going to be around for too much longer. So for those of you who don't know, we are approaching Alpha 10 very quickly. Alpha 10 is supposed to be out sometime this month, probably a little bit later in the month, I would say, probably a week or 2 weeks away, but that is all guesswork on my part. I actually don't know right now. But what we do need to work out is what is going to happen when we go from Alpha 9, which is what we're in right now, over to Alpha 10, which is going to be the new version of SkySaga. So when we go from one to the other, a lot of things are going to change and a lot of things are going to disappear. So first of all, we'll start with what is actually going to stick around. So the stuff that is going to stick around is your friends list, which hopefully mine will pop up right now. So your friends list and also your name. So pretty much you've got your name, you've got your friends list, and then you also have all of your published islands. So once my island list pops up, anything that I've actually published already, so my Wonderland, my town, my Dominion, not my home, not my ruins, my workshop though, some of these other ones, as you can see, I haven't published all of my islands right now, but all of the ones that I do publish are going to survive. Now, interestingly, when these things get carried over, when they get carried over between an alpha, there are some things that make it across in the carryover and some things that don't. Now, what I mean by that is any placed blocks, for the most part, any actual blocks themselves are going to be carried over, and most of the decor. Now, I say most because there's a few exceptions to this rule. Basically, if anything changes with any particular piece of decor between the swap over, then the old version of the decor will disappear. Now, a really good example of this is when we swapped over from Alpha 8 to Alpha 9, the pillars changed. So these pillars right now are dynamic, and when you place them down, they kind of change. And what that actually meant was that when we swapped from one alpha to the other, these pillars changed from one thing to another, which meant the old pillars got phased out and deleted, and meant that they didn't actually appear on published islands. Even though they should have been there, they didn't exist anymore because the actual item itself didn't exist anymore. So certain things like that, if any recipes change or, you know, get modified in any way, those are most likely to disappear. But at this point in time, being in Alpha 9, there is absolutely no way to know which recipes are going to stay and which ones aren't going to stay. So realistically, your best bet is to put anything down that you want to keep. So I have 4 chests over here, completely full of all sorts of different decor. So you should really grab all of these things out, and I'm about to go through and do this. Grab all of these out and place them down on an island somewhere and publish that island. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, and it's actually not going to get carried over. Anything that is not decor, anything that's in a chest or is dropped on the ground, is not going to be carried over. So all of these sharp stones aren't going to be carried over, which is probably a good thing. I don't really want those anyway. And also everything in all of my chests isn't going to be carried over. So for those of you who are quite quick, you'll probably realize that that means that all of your items and bits and pieces, so all of your pickaxes and chest pieces and all of that type of stuff, none of that is going to be carried over either. So that means that some of you are probably like me, have a very big storage area right now. You probably have a chest something like this. It's got all of these kind of interesting little bits and pieces that get picked up along the way and are used for questing and that type of thing. You probably also have a chest like this where you've got a whole bunch of island titles and some bombs and maybe even some actual title deeds themselves. All of these things are going to be wiped, so the best thing to do with these is to actually cash them in. So you might as well take them to the city, get some money out of them, because then that way you can do things like build blueprints out of them and use your knots to finish blueprints. So as I said, blocks are going to stay, which means if you go into a blueprint and create a slab of blocks and then pay for that slab of blocks and publish the island you place that on, that is going to carry that over into the next alpha. In actual fact, we're about to go through and do some of that stuff. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can just sell off and then use to build up stock of items and blocks and things that you're going to be able to carry across into the next alpha. As I said, decorations and things are kind of risky because they may change between alphas, but if you've got stuff already sitting around in chests that you want to try and carry across, you might as well grab those out and place them down on an island that you then go ahead and publish. So quickly, I am going to show you guys how we do this. So first of all, I'm just going to throw some stuff down that I want to save. I'm going to republish this island a couple of times, but I just want to make sure that I at least get these eggs in. So I'm just going to throw all of these eggs down just like this. And once all of those guys are down, we're going to go ahead and publish this island. So the way you do that is to be on the island that you want to publish, and on the private version of that island. And then, as you can see here, this is my forest home. This is where I am right now. I can just click this Make Island Publish button, public button. It changes so that I've now got these three options, which are stop this island being public, republish, or go to the public version. And now this island is public. That's it. That's all I've needed to do. And if I wanted to then place down these other 10 eggs that I have in my hand, and then make sure that these are saved through into Alpha 9, all I need to do is place these guys down, and then once we actually have that placed down, all we need to do from there is go back into this menu, go back to the island that I'm currently standing on, which is this guy here, and go republish. So it doesn't actually pop up any boxes or any messages or anything. All it does is give you that nice little sound, and it's republished. That's all you need to do. So basically, it is the best way to go about things is to make sure that anything that you want carried over, any decor, any blocks, anything like that, place them all down, use your boots of placing, use your blueprints, all of that kind of stuff. And make sure they're all down, and then make sure that all of the islands that you want published are actually published. Even if you don't want them to be public long term, even if you're just going to use them to carry items over from Alpha 9 to Alpha 10, make sure that they are published. And once again, the publishing is done through the islands list, and it's just that little button that pops up down here when you're on that island and it hasn't been published. Obviously, when it has been published, you've got the choice to republish and through stop the island being public. But of course, we just want to use that republish button for the time being. So let's go through. I'm going to grab a bunch of items out of my chests here, and I'll show you the type of stuff that is, I think, good to sell, and then we'll have a quick look at using blueprints to set up a kind of warehouse type island that we can use to copy a whole bunch of stuff across from Alpha 9 into Alpha 10. Okay, so here we are. In my inventory, I have a whole bunch of stuff that I think it is worthwhile selling off, and as you can see, all of it shows up when we jump over here and have a look at this. So, like I said, it's all of these kind of little rewards and boss drops that you get along the way. These things are kind of good to try to sell off, because usually they're only used for questing, and they're usually pretty high in terms of the amount of knots that you're going to get back out of all of this. So I already have 76,000 knots, but at the end of all of this, you'll see that I'll go up very, very dramatically. So even like the 4 toxic gems, these guys aren't all that hard to kill, to get. This is just a couple of bad guys beaten, and we're already looking at thousands of knots. Now, next things I've got here are chest plates. Any chest plates from any realm, especially the higher level chest plates, the epic chest plates, give you masses and masses of knots. So if you've got any of these sitting around in a chest and you haven't used them for a while, get rid of them and sell them off, because it is really, really going to help out with collecting knots that we can then use to buy blueprints and use those blueprints to have blocks and things going through into Alpha 10, because of course that way you've got stuff there that you can just grab hold of and keep crafting and keep going with as soon as you jump into Alpha 10, and it makes it just a little bit less of a grind. Also, any dark arts you have lying around, I mean, obviously don't sell all of your dark arts off right now. Leave a couple so that you can keep doing adventures and things between now and the actual time. But, you know, any kind of, if you've got a huge amount, just split it in half and sell half of it. That will be perfectly fine. The other thing I've got here is a whole bunch of island titles. Now, these island titles will carry across if you actually name your island whatever with them. But obviously I have so many island titles here that I'm not ever going to use all of these. So I think I'm going to hold on to 1 or 2 of these, but I'm not going to hold on to all of them. I'm certainly not going to hold on to some of these higher level ones, the mythic ones, because those are going to give us a lot of knots when we go through and sell them. Now, of course, I've also got down the bottom here, we've got some of the gunpowders, and as you can see, these things don't really give a whole lot, but you know, if you've got a bit of time, you might as well go through and sell them off, because they are also going to give you some knots, and they are going to jump your knot count up quite considerably. And you've also got weapon choices and stuff here, but like I said, the chest plates are really the ones that you want to sell off to get the largest amount of knots that you possibly can. Also, these nice little kind of cosmetic items don't really trade in for too much, but once again, if you've got a whole bunch of them sitting around the chest, it might be worth your time going through and selling a few of those off. Anyway, once you've collected up a whole bunch of knots, it's time to head over to the blueprint trader and see what we can see up there. So here in the blueprint trader, we're looking for anything that's going to give us a large number of blocks. So if we have a look at this rainbow pyramid, for example, this looks like it is made completely out of iron blocks. So this is going to give you a good stash of iron blocks if you wanted to buy that and then purchase all of the iron blocks. This thing is going to be very, very expensive though, so you need to have traded in a whole bunch of stuff to do that. This one seems as though it is a lot of different types of blocks of different grasses and other bits and pieces. Let's take a look. It does seem to be all of the grasses and all of the leaves. So there you go. If you want a whole bunch of grass, leaves. Oh, actually, this looks like it's got everything in it. This is pretty cool, actually. So I might grab one of these out and we'll put one of these down on our island that we're going to use to carry over our little warehouse island. So once again, you're just going to go through here and just look for anything that has a large mass of blocks. People have been creating stockpiles already, so grab a hold of a couple of different stockpiles and we'll throw those down on an island that we're going to use as a warehouse island. So here we are on a brand new island, and this is kind of what I suggest you do. So I've just created up a very small platform down the bottom here using my own little, this is supposed to be moonstone floors, but of course I've now misspelt that. Anyway, so I'm using these moonstone floors to create out a little pad, so they're just blueprints. I've then thrown down this blocks times 250, don't buy. So I'm going to use this to create a whole bunch of blocks here. So as you can see, if we scroll down this list, I can purchase whichever ones of these I like, and it seems as though the creator of this blueprint put down pretty much 250 of every single type of block that exists. So with the exception of the iron blocks seem to be 25 each. So I'm not sure which of these I do want. Actually, I am kind of sure. So there's going to be a couple of these blocks. So stuff like the mosswood blocks I want to buy and put into this blueprint. The amberwood blocks, because they're sometimes kind of hard to get hold of. Bloodwood blocks, for example, also kind of hard to get hold of. So there's a whole bunch of these things that I'm going to purchase up here. And I'm just going to keep using all of the knots that I've got in the last couple of minutes to fill this whole thing out, and therefore get a whole bunch of different blocks and block types ready for Alpha 10. Because of course, when Alpha 10 hits, I can then come back to this island, I can then mine up these blocks, and I can take the island off of public, and I have all of these blocks ready to go, and I can start creating big and awesome things right off the bat. So that's what I'm going to do. I mean, some of these things I could, of course, go through and actually place them in if I wanted to, but also I have just got a whole bunch of knots, so I might as well use the knots that I have, although some of these things, moonstone blocks and so on, I can just throw in pretty easily. Some things, although, like the springstone blocks, are pretty hard to come by, so doing those by paying for them is actually really not a bad idea at all. So now I'm going to go through and finish off all of this stuff, but this is only part of what I was suggesting you do. So you do something like this, publish that, and then publish the island, and then also have a big floor where you put down any decor that you want to keep going through into Alpha 10. So I'm just going to put down a whole bunch of other little bits and pieces here. Some of these things we purchased in the shop and I hadn't ever seen them before, so I purchased a whole bunch of them. I don't know what I'm going to do with them yet, but I want to hold on to them until Alpha 10 if I can. They may not be recipes in Alpha 10, I may not get these back, but there is a chance that I will, so I'm going to take that chance and place a whole bunch of these down before publishing this island. So there you go, that is what I think you should be doing to get yourself ready for Alpha 10. I hope you guys have enjoyed that one. I hope this has helped some of you guys out, and I will see you in the next video.